Here at the Sileightymania podcast, we're passionate about drifting history, so here's a little history lesson. Back in 2003, Falcon Tires did what no other tire company in the US did. They promoted drifting by sponsoring Falcon Drift Showoff, and they brought legendary Japanese drifters Koguchi and Seigo Yamamoto to judge and do demos. They sponsored grassroots drivers, and when FD was established, they supported the series and drivers for 19 years. When we approached Falcon about partnering with us, they were happy to come on board because they care about drifting culture and they support our mission to document drifting both past and present. Thank you, Falcon Tires, for playing an important role in drifting around the world and for making Season 2 our best season yet. For more information, please visit Falcon Tire's website at falcontire.com and check out their IG at Falcon Tire. You're listening to the Sileightymania podcast Season 2, brought to you by Falcon Tires. Here we document the history of drifting by interviewing the OGs and trendsetters of drifting culture. Thanks for joining us for another episode of the Sileightymania podcast. I'm your host, Benson Su, and with me I have my co-host and co-producer, Nadine Su. What's up, babe?
Hey, honey buns.
And we got our video audio engineer, Mark Mondoy. What's good, Mark?
How's it?
Hey, so we have another great interview for you today.
Oh.
Are you guys ready?
Yes. Are you ready?
I was born ready.
Okay.
So we have so much to talk about with this person, and I think we don't have enough time. So we're just going to cut straight to it and get into this. You guys ready?
Cut to the chase.
Let's go.
All right.
Okay. So we have a Hong Kong singer-songwriter, actor, and producer. He picked up the piano and violin at the age of 6, and he trained in various martial arts like judo, Wing Chun, and he joined the Hong Kong music industry in 2009 and released 4 Cantonese albums.
Hey, are you sure that's the right one?
Yeah, that's you, right?
I think you have me confused for Edison Chen.
No, this is Jonathan Wong.
Jonathan.
Do we have the wrong Jonathan Wong?
No. Okay.
Hold on. Maybe it's this Jonathan Wong. Okay. John Wong is an actor and a stuntman. He attended Cal State Long Beach. He has a bachelor degree in theater arts, and he's been on Westworld, Shooters, SWAT, and This Is Us.
Getting a little closer. I went to Cal State, LA.
We did the
Wrong Jong Wong.
I need to fire my assistant. Okay.
I think we should call this Wrong Jong Wong.
John Wrong.
John Wrong. Okay.
I think I got the right one.
Third time's
I think
the charm.
I got the right one.
Here, honey buns. This is the one. Third time's the charm.
John Wong is a SoCal native born specifically in the San Gabriel Valley. He is an OG, and he started getting involved with import cars in the 90s. He worked at Superstreet from 1998 to 2014, where he became editor-in-chief. Jonathan Wong, welcome to the podcast.
Hey.
Thank you.
Yeah,
I'm
that was
super excited to be here.
You were until we messed it all up.
No, that was great. Although I wasn't born in SUV.
Oh, you weren't?
No.
Where were you?
I am a LA native. I was
Uh-huh.
born in Hollywood.
Oh.
That's so technical.
Oh, okay. My
I
bad.
wanna get technical.
He wants the Hollywood
But
cred.
Yeah.
Yes.
But I grew up in SUV.
Okay.
Nice.
Thanks for correcting us. So, John Wong, we're going to ask you the question we ask everyone. When did you fall in love with drifting?
Oh, falling in love with drifting is probably a lot different than you guys.
Yeah.
I first found out about drifting by reading option magazines in early 90s. I think we always had those friends that were going to Japan, bringing those books back.
Yep.
Or you go to Yaohan Plaza.
Yep.
That's, like the little shopping center in Little Tokyo, downtown LA. Was it Kinokuniya Books? I don't even know if that was, I don't even know if that's like the original name of the bookstore. But I just know you go there. That's the only place you can find these magazines. And we just kind of shuffle through. We don't really know what it is, right? Because it's all in Japanese.
Right.
We don't technically know what it is. But we're just looking for cool pictures of cars.
Yeah.
And we're like, okay, this seems to be something kind of interesting. But at the same time, we're also looking primarily for Honda stuff.
Right.
but we're like, oh, there's cool pictures of 240s and they seem to be doing some kind of motorsport activity. So we have a very vague concept of what it might be.
Mm-hmm.
It's not until later on when I see maybe option videos that you kind of understand more of that context of what that is.
Right.
But even then, you still don't fully understand that because there's no event here that we can see.
Yeah.
And we're so hyper-focused on drag racing at the time, in the early mid-90s. And it's not until I see maybe the first issue, first issue of Superstreet magazine, where I eventually start working, where I see
the first one you saw? Or the very
first issue of Superstreet.
Okay.
I remember picking this up and thinking, I'm a diehard Turbo magazine sport compact car reader, and I see this thing called Superstreet, and I'm looking at it. It doesn't look as great a quality. I'm going through it. I said, but they got this thing on drifting. It was that I don't know whatever event at Willow Springs. Somebody talked about this on a recent podcast.
The option Ikaten in '96.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
That's when Superstreet first started.
I had no idea.
Right. So it talked about who was there, and I have no idea who these people are, and there's very few photos in that issue. And I probably should have brought that, but I can probably scan that and get it to you later.
And then we'll put it up right here.
But that's where I read about actual drifting in the U.S. Now, I'm not going to say that's where I fell in love with it. That's just an event that I happened to read about in the magazine.
Mm-hmm.
It's not actually until much further down the road when I'm finally working at Superstreet and I'm, being tasked to find different things to cover in the magazine. So while I'm there, and I can't even remember at the time, but I'm pretty sure I started getting into forums about drifting or whatnot. I don't know. I couldn't remember what forum it is.
Mm-hmm.
And in that's where I start seeing guys like, it actually could have been because of the Hybrid Honda forums. So there I'm learning about how to tune Hondas, that JDM style, right? Which is so new and foreign to mostly everybody. But then there's these two guys, Slide Squad, Mark and Dave, which is, they were FF Squad's buddies, right? And so I look at this, I'm thinking, what the hell is a front wheel drive Civic drifting?
Yeah.
And then I just remember when my boss said, let's do a drifting issue. I said, okay, we need to do this properly. So let me start investigating.
So who was your boss at that time?
My boss at the time was Richard Chang,
nice.
The second editor-in-chief of Superstreet after Matt Pearson, who started the magazine. So he was really forward-thinking.
And this is in what year?
2000.
Oh my gosh.
So he's thinking, let's do something new. Like drifting seems to be something that is, and you guys can tell me if I'm wrong. I don't know if it's starting to take off at that time, but people are definitely catching wind of it.
Yeah.
Like we know it's, you see it on the internet. More people are talking about it. But the only people, the first people I feel like I have an in with to even approach and talk to get some better information about what it is Slide Squad. So these are the guys that are FF Squad's buddies, and I think I meet Dave first, maybe off the Hybrid Honda forums.
Yeah.
And so I just arranged this photo shoot with them. Let's see. The cover car was not even an actual drift car, but it was one of our friends, Ricky Chu. He had a SR swapped S14. So we think, okay, that this is a good car that kind of maybe looks the profile, even if it's technically not a drift car.
Mm-hmm.
I was friends with Antonio Alvanida. Sorry, Antonio. Cypher Garage Antonio.
Yep.
So I already know I can ask him some questions because I've got a Toyota guy. And then I don't even remember how I meet you, but I know it must have been on a forum. I said, this guy seems to be, I'm always looking for somebody that's in the know of a particular scene that seems approachable. And I just remember feeling you were approachable. And so I, gather whatever kind of information I can. I'm thinking I've got the best issue going. This is going to put us
It's groundbreaking. It's going to put you on the map.
And like the drift guys they're going to go crazy for this.
Yeah.
It comes out, of course, I hop on the forums. I got to know how it's doing. They are tearing us apart. It was probably the worst received, but it's one of those things like when something underground goes mainstream for the first time.
Yeah.
You can talk about hip hop.
Yeah.
Even JDM Honda stuff. When I first started writing about that, those guys tore me apart because they're saying, who the hell is this guy coming into our forum, taking our information that we so diligently worked hard on to, and it wasn't even about like who's bringing it out first, but this is like, it's a scene, it's an underground scene, it's cool, right? And now all of a sudden, everybody's going to be doing it.
Yeah.
And I think that was the thing that pissed everybody off, was like, what the right? And we did get the information right, because I'm getting this straight from you guys.
Yep.
And I know I felt bad because Dave and Mark, people, they, shit all over them.
Yeah.
They're like, what are you guys doing? Like, you're exposing, you can't tell them where Azusa Canyon Road is. You can't take them up to our drift spot, right?
Yeah.
Like, it was that, that one turn, right? That little mountain where everybody was coming down.
Don't tell them to turn.
And then you can't go, please don't do this on public roads, right?
Yeah.
But it was such a big deal for the local, Southern California guys. It was such a huge deal that we
because it was during a time where drifting was not mainstream, and the people that were doing it, we would meet up late at night. We would do it on public roads. We would have certain things that we would do to avoid attention and avoid the police and, things like that. And so, and I remember when you reached out to all of us, you were on some of our forums and you were asking people if they wanted to get involved. And there was a big discussion like internally amongst a lot of us. And a lot of us didn't want to do it because we thought it was going to blow up our spots, just ruin everything for us. And I remember when you asked me, like, I had that conversation with myself, like, is this something I want to be involved with? And I took a step back and I said, no, I'm not going to do that. But Mark and Dave did, and I think a lot of people felt betrayed by them when that happened. But it's I think I had the same exact experience with Fast and the Furious. Mm-hmm. When the movie came out, I was like, I don't want anything to do with that movie. It's going to ruin the scene. But I mean, it's part of the evolution of the culture. And
I feel like when I even think back on it, yes, what you say about it now is absolutely true. And, even your past guests, when they talk about those instances, they make way more sense now, having gone through that side of the experience and then now seeing how it must have been like for you guys back then. But all I was trying to do is just put an issue together.
Yeah.
Like, we probably weren't even thinking about, what could be the possible fallout of exposing this?
Right.
And, yes, can people get into trouble? Well, I mean, you would get into trouble anyway if cops were up there.
Yeah.
But think looking back now and then knowing, I totally agree.
Yeah.
Like, I wouldn't want my spot blown up either.
Yeah.
It totally makes sense now.
But it was something that was inevitable. Yes. And I don't know if we ever talked about your magazine issue or not, but it was, I hope you don't feel bad because it had to happen.
I only felt bad at the time.
Okay.
Because, you don't want, and it wasn't like we were close friends.
Yeah.
Me, Dave, and any of you guys really. I wasn't even close to Antonio, but it was just feeling bad. Like, I didn't want you guys who are in the thick of, fostering this really cool scene to be looked upon as, oh, you guys are sellouts.
Yeah.
Like, you are the reason why this went down. And I don't think that was the goal of any, like, I remember Dave and Mark were like, no, it's all about having fun.
Yeah.
Like, he's like, we don't care.
Yeah.
Like, we could care less. But of course, when the hammer really came down, like, oh, I could tell they had to say some things to, like, appease, the people who were most upset. And then after a while it went away.
Yeah.
And then it all started unfolding.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe even later that year or the year after, when I started going to Japan, then we started going out. Well, okay, we don't need these local guys and stuff. We're going straight to the source. We don't need you guys anymore.
Yeah.
But the mission was to always try and remain as true to what you guys were doing. We never ever wanted it to be this thing where, our goal is to sell magazines, get people hyped up on it. And this is before this, that is the quote unquote social media of the time.
Yeah.
This is the only way people's going to get their information. And we weren't making videos, nothing of that sort. So yeah, of course, if you still want the legitimate, coverage, you were still going to look for option. Like that was never going to change.
Right.
Until things really did change, a little more later on down the road.
Yeah.
Yeah, but in hindsight, it's just hard to be a trailblazer. So you kind of trailblazed the
That's
first U.S. drifting article, and I think that's dope.
Not drifting article, but I mean, at least thinking about, there's so much drag racing coverage. There's so much, if I'm looking back, car shows, right? It's just all of that. Well, let's just do something a little bit different. Drifting. This is so different.
Yeah.
And, no matter how hard you try and capture it on photographs, it just doesn't look as good as seeing it. So
it's about motion.
Yeah. Until, those, like Drift Showoff actually comes along, we
3 years later.
Yeah. We couldn't have done more than what we did. So at least, it was mainly, let's get the word out there. Yeah. Let's see if people take an interest. And a lot of people, honestly, if I can recall, a lot of people didn't really get it either.
Yeah.
We got a lot of mail like, what?
Yeah.
They're like, we just want to see more Hondas.
More Hondas, yeah.
Because Superstreet's readership at the time was a lot of East Coast.
Yeah.
A lot of people think, because we are from Southern California, we have this very preconceived thought of, car tuning culture. Mm-hmm. And to be honest, it's so different. We can get into this.
Yeah, we'll get into that later.
It is so different once you go outside of California. It is totally different. So many people from the East Coast, which is predominant readership, they didn't get it anyway. So it wasn't like those guys were not going to fly over and take your spot. The actual readership of Southern California is so low in comparison.
That's interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah. So tell us at that time. Oh, go ahead, baby.
You didn't tell us how you fell in love with drifting.
I know.
Well, I fell in love with drifting because there it goes. Hey, Robbie. I mean, I fell in love with drifting just by sheer nature of having to cover it.
Okay.
It's not because I'm actually driving myself, learning how to drift. I don't even get an opportunity to try and do that until much later. So it's just by curiosity. I can't say I fell in love with it the first time I saw an option because we don't know anything about it.
Yeah.
And it's really, it maybe not even until Drift Showoff, that first event, because I still have never seen it up close. But when you finally see, well, here are 2 pros from Japan doing this in your backyard, and you're like, wow, this is cool. It's really that first event,
experiencing it in person.
And then maybe it's a gradual love because, when I start going to Japan and you see it on different levels, or, and then you see the genesis of American professional drifting. Yeah. Now it takes on a new meaning. So I'm learning about it and loving it in different ways all the time, even now. Yeah. Right. I mean, it's not just, I love it because, like you fell in love because, here's a way to, control a car that's exciting and whatnot. And I'm sure it's way different for you two than it is for me. But for me, it's a gradual appreciation.
Nice. Same for me. And I feel like, it starts and then your love changes as like the years go by, and then your involvement with drifting changes. But then even up to today, we're all of us are still involved with drifting, but it's not like we're not driving every day, but we are kind of each involved in a different facet. So I'm excited to get to that later in the podcast because I really want to talk to you about what you're doing now. So, because even from back then to now, you're still very involved. And I'm excited to talk about that. But I want to talk about the magazines because at that time during the 2000s, I mean, paint the picture in the scene with magazines, because some of us may not know because a lot of them aren't around anymore. So kind of paint the picture if you're at a newsstand and you want to learn about imports, like what was there.
Yeah, we can just go back. We'll go back a decade. I mean,
and we go back.
As far back as I can remember when it comes to finding out information about cars, just in general. I mean, I can go back to the 80s as a kid. My dad will bring home Motor Trend or whatever. Or I'm at the newsstand with him. This is your only source of information is going to a bookstore, a newsstand. What is a newsstand?
Yeah.
What is a bookstore?
Yes, you can pick up newspapers, magazines.
Yeah.
But this is literally the only source of finding information, photos. So when I'm a kid, it's, oh, Dad, look at this cool Ferrari or Porsche. Can I buy this? So, yeah, I'll get it for you. Come home, you're reading it, tear the pictures out, stick it on your wall.
Yes.
You kind of look at it from
Why are you cutting up my magazines?
Yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, my dad, he knew I was going to do that. So that's that part when you're a little kid.
Yeah.
High school, it's when I am starting to get into cars along with my friends, it's we need to find more information about what can we do to our cars. And so in the early 90s, that is turbo sport compact car. If I can recall, those are literally the only two that are predominantly dedicated to, it's not even imports, but sport compact cars, right? It's really very specific because it wasn't even the Hondas, they don't get popular until a little bit later down the road, right? They never started off as, this is a car you're going to swap an engine into. Honda didn't design these cars to be performance cars.
Right.
They were meant to be economical.
Yep.
It just so happens that along the way, guys start figuring out, hey, the Japanese variant of this exact same car does come with this engine. Let's swap this into it. And that's still further down the road. But in the early 90s, it's, wow, this car looks great, slammed. I just want more pictures of it. Yeah. So I'm even stoked when I see 2 articles about car. And I learned this later on when I start working at Superstreet. The golden rule is you never feature a car that's been featured already because you want to be the first to break the news. And so that's often why you never saw cars other than that one time they were published in the magazine, is because that's the golden rule. You always want to be first. You don't want to report on it second. But yeah, and then when I see Superstreet on the newsstand for the first time, this is the first magazine I see that teaches you how to do things to your car. So at this stage, 95, 96, I'm just graduating high school. But, my friends and I were, the extent of what can we do to modify our cars is we lowered our cars by ourselves. We can put an intake on. But Superstreet was the first time I saw something where they teach you step-by-step DIY, how to do things yourself. And I thought that's super interesting because I'm like, now I don't have to ask my friends that are more mechanically inclined. Right. I'm really bad when it comes to fixing up my own car. But, you learn how to do certain things. And I said, oh, this is step by step, literally in this magazine. I'm going to buy it, take it home. But this is because Superstreet comes from the same publishing company that does Hot Rod magazine.
Okay.
So they come from this is a history of publications that have this sort of,
readership
instructional
concept.
Yeah.
So I thought that was what separated it nicely from turbo and sport compact car at the time.
Right.
And of course I don't start working for Superstreet until 98. So there's a nice tier, there's 2 years from the time that it starts until the time that I get in there.
Yep. And then there's also, name some others that I know there's Import Tuner. Right?
So later on, Import Tuner, D Sport, God.
These are all newer
Import
magazines
Racer,
from like the,
these are
when
all
they started in like the 2000s, right?
Yeah, kind of the late 90s,
Okay.
2000. Yeah, like that 2000 to 2002 is like the super golden era of call it sport compact tuning.
Yeah.
Import car culture. That's like the golden era genesis of it all.
Let's go back a little bit to the early 2000s. You're talking about how Hondas were becoming popular. I know why a lot of people that I knew drove Hondas is because our parents thought it was a wise financial decision, gets good gas mileage, it's an inexpensive car, and it's they're made with good quality, right? So you're not going to have to fix them all the time. That's why we had them, and I think that's what made it easy for us to be like, well, I drive this car already, like I can fix this one up, right? Was that the same experience with you and your friends? Like, why was it Hondas?
For me personally, I learned about fixing up Hondas before my friends. I have older cousins who, if we're talking about Southern California car culture and specifically car clubs, like Asian, with Asian people in them. I know it's really hard for people to understand this, but, Southern California, the car culture of like car clubs specifically, I learned this from my cousins that I'll classify them as one generation above me. So they're probably 5 to 8 years older than me. And they are already fixing up the 86 CRX at the time.
Okay.
Maybe.
What does that mean, fixing up? What were they doing?
Lowering the cars, wheels, HKS already had parts, and so at one time I had a couple cousins living, with me at my dad's place. Yeah. And, they come over and just work on their cars. Yeah. And I'm only 10 or 11. Okay. Whatever it is at the time.
So you're soaking all of this in.
I don't even really know what's going on. I just know, we're going to put a stereo system in the car. Yeah. We're lowering it and we're going to take you to go cruise with us. Yeah. Okay. I jump in, we go cruise around Chinatown, East LA. And this is how I find out about fixing up cars, for the first time. Okay. And then,
you mentioned HKS, and I know that I don't think a lot of people know, but HKS has been here for a really long time.
Very long time.
And for a really long time, they were the only Japanese aftermarket car manufacturer that was here. Until, I don't know, maybe the mid 90s when you started seeing other companies like Reddy and Apex and Blitz.
Yeah. And, I think a lot of, probably what SoCal car club guys would say are the true OGs. It's not the Honda guys that are the OGs.
Right. Yes.
There's this total, older demographic.
Yeah. Going back to the 70s.
The street racer, like these, guys from like Gardena and SGV, when they're going to talk about East Side and like, South Bay and all that stuff. And those guys worked at HKS, the OG HKS, staff. Yeah. That is like, those are true gods, when you're talking about Southern California, car club scene.
What year did HKS come?
That I don't know. I would guess, I'm probably wrong, but probably mid-late 80s, because it was already, I remember going to LA Auto Show, not as a, maybe like 10, 11, somewhere around there, and I grab HKS. I still have this brochure. I said, oh, this looks cool, right? Because I think I would even see an ad in Motor Trend or something. Like they used to have like these, like you would see Jackson Racing. Yeah. You would see HKS, like these little, small dinky ads in the back, right? I'm like, oh, that's cool. That's what my cousins are doing. And so when I'm at these auto shows, like, you grab one, not because I'm thinking about, how I'm going to fix up my car. I'm just thinking about, this is something cool that my cousins are doing. I recognize this. Yeah. And now I want to add this to my picture of Ferrari, my wall of fame of things to look at on the wall. Yeah. So it's and then you learn much later on when I do get into a driving age, I'm like, ooh, I remember HKS. Yeah. We can't afford it though. All of it's super expensive. Right. So that's why
And then you got a car. When did you get your Honda?
My first car was a 1991 Honda Civic Si hatchback.
What year was this?
94. I am a junior in high school. I remember begging my mom to get. I really wanted an Integra, a DA Integra. I really wanted a DA Integra, but those were too expensive at the time. Of course. Wow, here you go. You can have a Civic. No, but I was really fortunate that my mom got me that car as my first car, and I was the.
How did you get an SI?
I just looked in the recycler. The recycler was this old printed kind of newspaper thingy,
black and white,
where you
classifies.
Yeah, it classifies. And
it's the old school Craigslist.
Yeah, you could buy, but it's strictly to find cars,
Yeah.
aftermarket parts, anything used, basically. Yeah. Not just car stuff, just anything used.
I bought those all the time.
Yeah, they were great. I got it from this guy in Cerritos. I didn't know anything about cars. I just knew, it's lowered already.
Oh.
It has an ultra flow exhaust. I'm thinking, okay, he's done a little bit of the work for me. I'm broke. I don't have money.
Yeah.
Yeah, and here I am. My mom's getting me a car. And I remember she told me, she's like, you're always bumming rides from your friends. She goes, do you have any interest in getting a drive? No, I'm good because I'm getting rides off my friends. She goes, what if I get you a car?
Yeah.
So you can be a little more independent. Oh. Ding, ding, ding.
Yep.
I'm going to get an Integra, right? And she's like, no, that's too expensive. But I said, how about this? She goes, okay, that seems a little more reasonable.
Yeah. How much was reasonable?
Oh, boy. I want to say, I can't remember how much. I want to say it was $8,000.
Wow.
Okay.
And you realize at the time, the car's only 3 years old.
Yeah.
So I think the car was probably about 12,000 brand new.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I just remembered, wow, I'm super lucky. Like, I'm extremely fortunate. And I'm the first one out of my high school friends to get a car.
Oh, wow.
So I wind up becoming...
You were the cool guy.
You were the man.
Not cool. I mean, I didn't have a lot of friends in high school.
Okay.
Right? So even before we form a car club,
yeah,
it's just knowing, whoa, dude, you got a car, right?
Yeah.
What high school is this?
South Pasadena.
So, but I remember in high school, I graduated in 96. So 95, 96, we were, people in my grade had cars.
Yeah.
And if you had a fixed up car, it was, you have clear corners. Oh, you have clear corners, your car's fixed up, right? Maybe you had a muffler or maybe you had some stickers, right? So it was like our idea of what a fixed up car is very minimal.
Oh, compared to today's standards?
Yeah.
Well, and to be truthful, you couldn't do too much to a car back then anyway.
Yeah.
And clear corners was, oh man, you're rich.
Yeah.
Because they were coming from Japan.
Right.
So what I did, I couldn't afford that. So I used a black sticker to cover the amber on my corner light. So it looked clear from a distance.
Okay.
So I was ghetto.
Yeah, yeah.
I got an air filter from one of those ridiculous giant K&N air filters that didn't do anything.
Yeah.
But I thought, oh my God, it's so cool because I have this.
Right. But what I'm saying is there were not that many. And so you must have been kind of a,
No. Like it wasn't because I got this car that all of a sudden my status at high school elevated.
Yeah.
No way. I mean, there were the older guys, that had the Integras.
Mm.
They were slammed on super, SSR super fins or super mesh with the straight pipe HKS exhaust.
Yeah.
Those guys were the cool guys.
Okay.
Like the guys like, oh, that guy's on 8-ball racing or whatever the car club was at the time. It's like, somebody's older brother.
Yeah.
Those were the guys
yeah.
that we were trying to be like.
Got it.
But we were nowhere near that.
Yeah.
Like I thought I was cool because I changed the hubcaps. That was the extent of, okay, I think I've saved up enough money because I went to, like the local wheel shop, like Daz at the time.
Daz, yeah.
On San Gabriel Boulevard.
Yeah, on San Gabriel. I went in there because, my friends said, hey, let's go look at some wheels. let's just see how much they cost. You go in there. They don't come to us because we look like
you're too young.
A bunch of punks.
Yeah.
They know we don't have money.
Yeah.
But, eventually, hey, man, you like these? It's like, you can't afford them.
Yeah.
Yeah, and at the time, I don't know how much it cost. It probably cost 2 G's for a set of wheels, which is still really expensive by any, standard of time. But yeah, we couldn't afford it. So yeah, we would swap wheels.
Amongst your friends.
Stock. Oh, you got GSR?
Oh yeah.
Fat fives?
Right.
Can borrow them for 2 weeks? Yeah, man. Or we would swap lowering springs. This is how broke we were. But the cool thing was we learned how to work on cars together. Trial, fog lights, trial and error. We didn't know anything we were doing. But it was a fun and innocent time of fixing up cars.
But John, I have to ask, what is the stupidest thing you did fixing up the car? I want to know.
That first car? Stupidest thing was probably putting one of those autometer monster tags.
Oh, that was the thing.
Did you have a light?
I did.
Oh,
damn. That was the thing.
When did it turn on?
Oh, I'd probably set it for 35.
Because you wanted to turn on?
Because you knew that if you were cruising down the street, especially down here on Valley Boulevard
at night,
you were going to find other guys with the same kind of car,
right,
with the same kind of monster tag, and you knew that as you were driving, you wanted to ding.
And did you turn it a little sideways?
Well, it was stacked against the A pillar.
Mm-hmm.
So it's facing at me, but it's like ding, like straight in your face.
Yeah.
And they knew. And I was so pissed because I was at the Glendale Galleria and it got jacked. But I still had the wires for it. And but I couldn't afford another one. So I bought just the light.
Just the light.
You put
just a shift light.
Into. Yeah.
Just a shift light.
And so I just wired that back up, used the existing holes to mount it. And it was at a fixed, I was like, well, I only want to come on at 3,500 RPM anyway.
I mean, that's good for gas mileage, right? So.
Yeah.
Well, so this conversation's intriguing me a little bit. I would like to talk about like the things that people would do to their cars back then. What was popular, right? So you've mentioned like, I think you mentioned the monster tack, fog light. Fog lights were big.
Fog lights were big.
Because it was something that was easy to get. Pias were a very popular brand, right?
Yeah.
I mean, cheap high school mods back then was ambers, right? Just your...
Oh, yeah. Anything you can do for relatively low cost or free.
Here's a good example is fast blinkers.
Yes, I was going to say
that. Yeah.
Tell us about fast blinkers.
So fast blinkers, you could essentially pull off depending on the car. So if you have I think it's if you had double filament bulb in the corner light, all you had to do is take one of them out and it would and we're like, yeah, it's cool, but you're missing a light somewhere.
Right.
Definitely the amber switch, so we could light someone up on the freeway, like if you want a street race.
Yeah.
We would swap the reverse lights out with colored bulbs.
Yes.
It's like, oh dude, he's got purple. City lights under the in the seatwell, the footwell, the footrest.
Yeah.
So that glows underneath. There's I
like the city lights and the one-piece Integra headlights.
Yeah.
The DA headlights.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, but you were rich if you had.
That was, I know. That's why I liked it. I was like, damn. No, I mean, I didn't have it, but I would see people with it.
Other things that were really big, the wink mirror.
Yes.
The really long
yes.
mirror. And now that
explain what that is.
So the wink mirror is this very long sectional mirror that if you look at it from just, a product like from afar, you're looking at it like, no, this looks horrible.
Yeah.
Because it also eliminates your sun visors.
Right. It goes across the entire windshield.
But when you are in the driver's seat, those sectionals become one long mirror. So as a driver, it's probably the best thing you can do to
visibility.
You don't have to just.
Yeah.
But it always shook. Like violently.
Yeah.
And so you'd have to stuff a Sanrio doll or whatever stuffed animal your girlfriend at the time gave you. Would stop the shaking.
It would stop it.
Yeah, because I think it's like 8 different mirrors at 8 different locations, like 8 different angles, or I don't know.
It's just 4.
Was it just 4?
It's staggered. So if you're from the passenger side, it looks like it doesn't make sense.
See, you just taught me something. I've never sat in the driver's seat with someone when someone had a wink mirror, so I did not know it just becomes one mirror when you're looking at it.
Visually, only from the driver, because you're looking at it from this. But if you're looking from this, you see the sections. So.
Okay.
Don't worry. Those of you that are watching,
they're very useful on golf carts.
Yeah. And then those that didn't have wink mirrors, they would get the Broadway mirrors, right?
Yeah, so you can just clip. I mean, I still use them today.
So do I.
I love them.
What else was big? Oh, just getting an air freshener.
And tell us about the air fresheners.
The air freshener is the simplest mod you can do.
The brand.
Oh god, Air Spencer.
Mm-hmm.
Air Spencer.
It's like a piece of Fleer chewing, Tops chewing gum. You open it lasts for 2 weeks and it's done.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But you refill the cassette,
the little cartridge.
You just open it, pop those in, and then
there's nothing more 90s than that squash scent.
So that air freshener, the squash Air Spencer, when I smell it, so if you've ever seen Ratatouille, the movie where he eats the critic eats the ratatouille and it brings him back to his childhood, that is literally what happens to me when I smell that squash air freshener. It brings me back to the 90s and all of the, everything, like the world was so amazing to me back then, like car culture, like experiencing like car shows and all of that stuff. It just immediately brings me back. And
he uses it today.
And I still use it today.
I use it today. But the crazy thing is, why do they name it squash?
I don't know.
Squash is the better name was, I think the Air Spencer had this, it was like a soda, like kind of quality. And I don't know. What does a soda smell like? Does it smell like Sprite?
Pocari Sweat. What it tastes like. It smells like. I don't know.
But yes, that smells like,
it's
like smelling an ex-girlfriend's perfume, right? You'll instantly be reminded of that time.
Yeah.
And you're like, yeah. As long as you ever need to, your car smells fresh. Boop. Well, here I am, high school again.
Yeah. I was on a budget, so I was getting my Sheldon. Like the cans.
Yeah, those are great too. Mm-hmm. I mean, each scent had its own.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, it's based on personality, right? Yeah. Everybody had they wanted certain, that smell for their car.
It's good times. What was the name of that store in Yaohan Plaza? The
Car Freak.
Auto Freak.
Auto Freak.
No, Carmate's the shop in Glendale.
Yeah. Auto Freak.
Auto Freak.
Yeah.
Dude,
Auto Freak was a store you can get all the little accessories and stuff. You can get shift knobs. You can get
at twice the price. Yeah.
Your Razzo shift knob, your Razzo pedals.
I'm guilty. Yeah.
Those. I had all
your mirrors, your wink mirrors, your Broadway mirrors.
Yep.
Everything.
I think we got to bring it back. I love
toes,
it.
Way big toes. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, we've been getting toes, so we'll move on.
We have to go through memory lane a little bit.
Yeah. It's a little bit of like SGV culture because we all kind of grew up in that area here in Southern California, and it's just a little pocket, big AAPI population. And cars were a quintessential part of the SGV. So
the San Gabriel Valley.
Yeah, San Gabriel Valley.
And I mentioned this before when I think in my interview with Nadine when we were talking about her book, but when in the mid-90s, early to mid-90s, import cars were starting to become very popular. And for me, it started to become part of my Asian identity to be able to, because in the media, what did we have? We had Bruce Lee. That's it, maybe, and so there wasn't a lot to be proud of in terms of being an Asian American. And so when imports became popular, I was also becoming a teenager. And so it all coincided for me, and just it was like just perfect timing for me.
Yeah, growing up in the 90s in the SGV, I think is very unique. If I have to compare it, like you say, as an Asian American, like before I start working at the magazine, I thought of my identity as I am Asian American because I have this fixed up Honda. I'm growing up in this area.
Yeah.
And honestly, I remember when I first started working at the magazine, I remember very distinctly, somebody asked me, they're like, oh, like, where are you from? Like, where'd you go? I said, oh, I grew up in the SGV. And I remember telling them, I'm going to live there for the rest of my life. Like, I don't ever want to leave.
Yeah.
You know, that small town kind of thinking. Not to say there's anything wrong with that. I mean, I think it's just loving so much of where I come from that I didn't want to forget it. And then it was because they started sending me on trips that, you know, that's where you start, you know, your horizons are expanding a little bit. But yeah, growing up in the SGV in the 90s is a very, like, I think it's a very special time for those of us who, you know, like us that got to experience that, because, you know, you're hanging out at Chinese cafes in the middle of the night.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing else to do except hang out in these parking lots.
But you got to park your nice car.
Yeah, like, that's all we did.
Like, and you get like front row.
Yeah, and reverse in.
This is literally all we did. We went to JR Cafe, off New and Valley.
If you're a gangster.
And we hung out there all the time. It was either at a friend's house, like their apartment, like condo parking lot. We just mob there, or we'd go to this cafe and stay there all night, like hours until like 5 a.m. and then go home, go to sleep all day, or go to school, rinse and repeat.
Yeah.
That was life in the SGV. Very simple.
Mm-hmm. I love that time.
I love it too.
Yeah. It was very powerful for me just because it's not like today where you have K-pop being played on the radio, right? We didn't have that. There was no Asian music. There was no Asian culture was not pop culture. So,
and I felt like we took a lot of things from other cultures too. I mean, I think, you know, my upbringing, you know, I technically grew up in Pasadena most of my life. So, you know, I got into hip hop at a very early age. You know, it's probably more like urban, you know, and then as I start going to schools where I didn't go to schools where there's a lot of Asians
to begin
with. And then as I start meeting friends in middle school, even in middle school, you know, I'm very like, you know, I have a very small perception, you know, even the Asian community. Mm-hmm. That's where I start meeting Koreans for the first time, where I mistakenly say, "Oh, Lee, you're Chinese, right?"
Yeah, me too.
They're like, "No, Korean." I'm like, "Korean?" I'm like, "Never met a Korean before."
Yeah.
And so you start meeting them in those very formative years of, you know, your early teens. And then it's in high school where you are suddenly exposed to, oh my God, like, feels like the entire world, you know, and that's, you know, really, you know, oh, these guys are in the cars too? Cool. I'm into that. But they're also into tagging, breakdancing. Like, there's so many, I feel like, subcultures within this Asian American, you know, community. And it could be the same today, but that it was so, all those little elements together were very, you know, very important in my forming as a, you know, my personality. You know, much of who I still am today, you know, are those very early years.
Yeah.
And being Asian American in SGV is very different than being Asian American in the Valley or in Orange County. You know, when we start, you know, figuring out, oh, we should go to other cities to meet girls, right? Like, we should go to, you know, like those Obon festivals in Orange County or in Torrance. Hey, you know, there's really cute girls down there because you feel like you know everybody here in SGV to a certain extent. Mm-hmm. So as you start branching out, you're like, oh, you know, each one have their own differences. Like when we all had pagers, right? Those different, you know, sections of Southern California, they had their own pager code. Like, you know, we had different numbers, you know, for those not knowing. Right. The original texting was going to a payphone and punching the alphanumerics, you know, the numbers to form, you know, code, right? You know, like actual text, right? And you sit there for hours just But we had our own, I felt like SGV, we had our own letters numbers that we used for letters that other cities like had to kind of figure it out, think about it.
Yeah.
And, you know, even when I changed high schools, you know, I remember the first day I went to a different in the Valley, you know, they said, you're definitely not from here, because I dressed slightly different than them. You know, my hair is like, I have the long bangs, but it's, you know, huge pompadour, slick back.
Please tell me you have a photo of that.
I do. Okay. I brought it with me. But yeah, just there's so many little differences, even just all around Southern California with those different Asian American groups.
Yep.
Love it.
But the SGV was the best.
I agree.
Duh.
This episode is brought to you by Lot USA. Lot USA has been the master distributor of Brid racing seats for the past 18 years. Celebrating their 42 years in operation, Brid manufactures high-quality performance products for circuit, drag, GT, and drift.
Nadine and I have always run Brid seats in our cars, and even today, Brid seats are the latest mod in our new drift car. Our favorite seats are the FIA-approved Zeta 4 and the reclinable bucket seat, the Stratia 3.
One of the latest releases from Brid is the Zeta 4 Vireo, which is a size small version of the Zeta 4 for petite drivers. Visit lot-usa.com for more info and follow them on IG at lot_USA. This episode is brought to you by Bartleby. Bartleby is a car builder and tuner in the Central Texas, Austin area. In addition to other Nissans like the 350Z, they specialize in GTRs, R32 through 35, and has over 10 years experience. In terms of tuning, they work with most standalone ECUs like Motec, M-Tron, Link, Haltech, and AEM, to name a few. Bartleby has tuned some of our friends' infamous cars, including J-Spec Sam's blue R32 GTR. When we get our GTR, we know where we're sending it to get tuned. Bartleby. For more info, visit bartleby.com and be sure to check out their dyno tuning videos on IG at Bartleby.
So, John, back in the day, car shows were really important. Drag racing was really important. Those were both very popular with the import car scene.
What year?
Well, I'm just in general.
Back in the day of what decade?
Just like the early to mid 90s, right?
Yeah, if I recall correctly, the first Battle of the Imports is 93.
Okay.
Definitely before I got a car. No, maybe after, because we had to get up there somehow, and it was usually us or whoever had a car, period.
Right.
Didn't matter if it was fixed up, but I think the first one had already happened, so I think we missed the very first one. But the second one was monumental, meaning everybody's going to be there. Anybody who's anybody in the street racing community is going to be there. This is where we're going to see, history being made, so to speak.
And Battle was big. I mean, you touched on that a little bit, but at one point it was all just street racing, right?
I mean, primarily street racing, or we would go to, drag strips like, Terminal Island, which is down in San Pedro. They have a little quarter mile, which was actually the best one to go to because it's sea level. So you could get the best times.
Okay.
Or you go to Pomona.
Yep.
Which was also probably the closest one to us. But I guess anybody who's making the official record is doing it at Battle because higher elevation. So it probably technically meant that if you were hitting the record up there at a certain time, if you brought it back down to...
You'd be faster.
You'd be much faster.
Yeah.
So I mean, I'm not speaking for those guys, but I know that was the benchmark event.
Okay.
So if the guys are clocking in whatever they're doing, and you just have to remember at those times, these are guys, in the very beginning was a lot of homemade turbo kits. They're getting really, they're finding their own ways to tune cars or working with AEM, John Conshaw, those early days of tuning to like, those, we're talking like the OG Honda street racer guys, like Junior Asper, Miles Bautista, Tony Fuchs, like the gods, like the guys are going, Stefan Papadakis, those guys are doing it themselves, tuning it themselves, and then racing themselves. So this is, it's crazy, but that's where we see, that is literal history right there. We didn't even know it.
Yeah.
We just want to go up there because it's something to do.
Right.
Yeah. You cram as many homies as you can into a car, and for $10, we're going to watch this all day.
Right.
Because we have nothing else to do. And we stay out of trouble. And I just remember how some of us would actually compete in the race. And we're not at that level, but one guy has a nitrous setup. So we're there to kind of help him out, be his pit crew or just support.
Yeah.
Or just take pictures, just hang out. It's just the thing to do. And then later on, as the battle, events start getting more progressively intense, faster, cars are going faster, more people are coming out to these things.
Right.
And I think it was Gary Castillo who said, like, yeah, when you went to these battles, like, the craziest shit happened. Even not at the drag strip. Like, when we go up there, the whole city of Palmdale is flooded with fixed-up cars, like, all ethnicities.
Yeah.
And I just remember, like, the one thing happening at night was the Motel 6. It's like this very legendary thing where I'd say half, if not most of the people there don't have a place to stay. But we luckily got a room at that Motel 6, crammed with like 10 people. And people were lighting tires on fire, rolling them down the street racing. Like, it was, like, sheriffs came, broke it up. But it was wild. We were just drinking beer, hanging out. And then you go watch the race the next day. I mean, it's like, when you think back about those early events, like, yeah, it was chaotic, but it was also that innocence of, like, not that was so unexpected. Right. All of that, it was crazy. And then,
can you tell us the importance in the grand scheme of things, the importance of Battle of the Imports?
I mean, that literally, those top guys, the ones that were inching, going faster and faster, those guys would eventually become the pioneers of, they were the pioneers of creating that technology to go faster that eventually catapulted import drag racing into, getting corporate sponsorships, really putting those, and some of those drivers, are at different stages of professional career today. So we really set them on a trajectory, depending who, of course not everybody made it. And, we could go to, there's so many things about why drag racing, sport compact drag racing had its downfall. But that's a totally way different conversation. But it was just, it put a lot of those guys on the map of, who they are today and why they are successful, because of those early days of first street racing and then drag racing on a professional level.
Yeah. Now let's talk about car shows, right? That was really big in the 90s as well. The most important one for me and in SoCal was Import Showoff. Were there others that led up to that, or was it always Import Showoff from the beginning?
Not that I can recall. Again, Import Showoff is revolutionary in that it's the flip side to the racing.
Yeah.
So now here's another event / avenue where we can go to, and now we can just look at the cars stationary. And this is like where you see guys, Arju Rivera, come up. Everybody from that side that eventually made a name for themselves in this industry was because they started from that realm. So my friends and I, of course, we're still broke, so we don't have the means to fix up cars on the level that they do. But it's incredible to see, man, like how much money they put into these cars, not just from a parts perspective, from customization perspective. Wow, he painted his car pearl white with shaved all the things, fender flares, and we cannot even fathom this. It's such a different level of car tuning.
Yeah.
But a very necessary component because, it just adds into the different flavors.
Yeah.
Right. Which was great. And then, even adding into that. So a couple years after that, I think is when, the internet starts to take off, and it's, America Online, if we can go back to that point.
Sure.
So this is, chat rooms. There's a chat room called Import Racing Chat Room.
Yeah. Well, let's take it back a little bit further and explain what America Online is.
So America Online is this service where you get this, the free CD in the mail. Yeah. You download the software onto your computer. You connect via modem very slowly. It is not like the lightning speed of your 5G T-Mobile line, but it's a very slow
56K
dial. You cannot make a phone call.
Right. Because it's using your phone to connect to the service.
And it takes, I don't know, a couple minutes to even connect, if you're lucky to connect.
Right.
And you hope that it stays connected. But
that was how we had access to the internet was through the service. So your modem would dial up AOL servers and it would make your connection. And now you have internet, really, really slow internet.
Very slow.
So much worse than our phones, but it was internet.
Yeah. And simply at the time, it was chatting with other people.
There are a lot of chat rooms in there.
Yeah. And, but the import racing.
The one.
Aside from, here are the different local Asian, where you can meet. Again, very innocent at the time, right? Because you don't have to worry about who is it. Are you going to be catfished by somebody? Yeah, you could have, but I think it was so it's a genesis for everybody where they don't know anything. And it's very, and this is how I met a lot of people, to be honest. A lot of people that I know today, especially from the car industries, because of who I met online. So when I talk about, being part of a car club in the SGV, and I'm seeing guys like Stefan Papadakis at my local speed shop, when before AOL, I'm looking at the guy from across the room and I'm thinking, that's the guy who has a car like me that I'm idolizing because he has the fastest version of my car.
Right.
But I can't go talk to him. He's in Wicked Racing. We're just these peons in our own. He would never talk to us.
Yeah.
And it was very separated. It wasn't like everybody was very chummy.
Right.
A lot of guys are very, it's a little bit of a tougher culture back then. Everybody kind of stuck to their own social circles. But when these chat rooms came alive, now, you have a chance to, everybody's in this room.
Yeah.
Now we're talking about stuff. So this is how I meet Stefan Papadakis, Ron Bergenholtz, even the car show guys. This is how I meet Kosoku guys. Mm-hmm. Not even RJ, but other Kosoku guys who I befriend.
Who's Kosoku? Gotta clarify.
Kosoku, that was RJ De Vera's car club. So these guys are the upper echelon of Southern California show car clubs. And
what was your screen name?
My screen name? Okay, so my car club was Team Macross 7. So that's a riff off of the old Robotech anime. My screen name was Macross 7. But I spelled it with different letters because I was so paranoid somebody would copy my screen name. And I don't know why I picked different letters, but it's the alternating of the capital M lowercase. Use a 1 and a 2 to form an R. That's how mine was. Yeah. There's a combination of those things at the time. It was dumb.
What was your screen name, babe?
Hoppa 180 SXY. SXXY.
I'm pretty sure I've seen you in chat.
Yeah, I was in the chat room.
I was in there too.
I was in there.
What about you, Mark? What was yours?
RS132NV.
Okay, that's not bad.
What was yours, baby?
I think I had a couple. Okay.
Oh.
The later one was Sileightymania. The first one is it's really funny. It kind of ages me, but I was trying to find my identity in car culture. No, it was not. It was not that bad. It was not that bad. But I thought Velside was super cool.
Oh snap!
And it was not, Velside was not widely known. And so I learned about Velside through the option magazines and stuff like that. And then I really thought the GS300 was cool. It's back in this time that was you had rappers like Jay-Z and Biggie talking about their GS. They're bragging about their GS, right? So I thought GSs were really cool. And in Japan, it was called an Aristo. So my screen name was VLS Aristo.
I didn't know that.
I didn't know that.
That was before you guys.
Oh. He wasn't in that room. That's why. He didn't come to.
But even in this room, this is how I met Steve Nakamura.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because even though Steve is in advance, it wasn't like he was an unattainable car club to talk to because either I would have friends at other high schools that knew him or, somebody's older brother, whoever knows them. But even we look at advanced like, oh, dude, those guys are the cool guys of the SGV. But now because of this chat room, we're all on equal playing field.
Yeah.
I got to know all these guys, like, on really personal level. And then we'd all start hanging out house parties. Or, Lisa Kubo, for example, she is still very famous for being, the female fastest drag racer of the time. And so she would say, hey, come by. I'm going to tune my car at this dyno. Why don't you just come hang? So I got to know her and her husband, Gary. And this is how all those friendships are made. So that later on, when I went to the magazine, now I have a Rolodex of people so that as I'm going out to do work, I don't have to struggle to find people to connect with.
Right.
Because a lot of times, yes, I was sent on assignment and I don't know anybody. It's really hard to, sometimes form a connection to get the story done. Then you're just getting a story to get it done. But now that I have these pros, the drivers, the people working at the companies, I can go because you're my friend. I can page you, and say, hey, call you. Hey, I'm doing this story. You want? Yeah, I'll do it. I'll help you out. And they want the publicity anyway.
Right.
So I was very lucky in the sense that, even though I didn't start off by knowing all these people, just by virtue of being so fortunate to, start off where I did, and then luckily make those connections and just like it all fell in line harmoniously. Like I'm very, very lucky and fortunate that it worked out the way that it did.
Yeah.
With those friendships. And I'm still friends with everybody today. So I look back, it's like, thank you, America Online, for.
What happened to them? I think are they still around?
They are still, I think they still are an email provider.
Okay.
Because I see people like, dude.
AOL.com.
Come on, man. You need Gmail now.
Or do you? It's OG.
Yeah.
It's OG.
Well, I mean, weren't we all sad when AI?
Oh, totally. When AIM stopped their service, yeah.
Instant Messenger
sad.
for those.
Yeah, those are the OG chat rooms, and before there were forums, there was
that was our our DMs back then, using the chat.
Yeah.
ASL.
So you went ASL. Well, you got to clarify. We have to add a little tidbit of like info.
ASL is the first message that you drop to somebody in a private chat, which stands for
even in the public chat, even in the Import Racers chat.
No,
someone comes on. You don't know who they are. You say
no.
ASL.
I would always.
Oh, you do it privately.
He's respectful. He was trying to be tactful.
I see.
He's trying to be tactful. I see.
Age, sex, location.
Yep.
Because and that was probably more in the rooms where import racing. You're going in there for a very specific reason.
Yeah.
You're going to talk about cars.
Yeah.
Everybody knows each other anyway, and that was kind of like trying to get into a nightclub, so to speak. You're just waiting for the room for somebody to leave so that you could get, when the room's full, you can't even get in.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so you're looking at the list, waiting for somebody to jump out.
What was the limit? What was the limit?
I don't remember. Maybe something like 30, 40-ish, but it was, you had to literally wait for space to open up and you sit there trying to get in, but you can be in multiple, you could be in multiple chat rooms at the same time. Maybe. I don't remember. But anyway, when you go into one where it's foreign and you're just kind of scanning down the list like, Asian baby, sexy girl. Maybe let's see.
Yeah.
ASL. When you ask for that picture, it takes like 40 minutes to hit.
That's your follow-up question after ASL.
Yeah.
If it's acceptable, pics, question mark.
Yeah.
Damn. Okay. All right. I'm going to move on from AOL, guys. Toes. All right. So you go to high school. Are you in college? Are you after college? You start working at Superstreet magazine. Like you end up working in a magazine that we love.
Yeah.
And
so that happens again by luck and having a little bit of good fortune on my side. So even before working at Superstreet, I am helping Ken Miyoshi, the founder of Import Showoff. He has this little, magazine that he produced. It's called SXY. It was this double-sided magazine. And I just remembered, I'm taking pictures, not professional, just point and shoot pictures at the car shows of us being at the car shows. I decided to hit them up and say, hey, I want to shoot photos for your magazine. Like, can I just do this? He says, yeah, why don't you shoot a couple of features for us and, event photos, and we'll put them in there. And I'm like, I don't need to get paid. I just want to, this is not like high profile work. I just want to, it's just cool to get your stuff featured in a magazine. So you want to
be part of the scene.
Yeah. I established that connection, and, every couple weeks or whatever, I go down to the mainstream productions office. He's first and foremost a club promoter.
Yeah.
Right? And then he does the car show, which is why he's able to pull off this car show, because he's approaching it like a club promoter.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And then, so as he's, doing these layouts for the magazine and whatnot, I get to know his guys, which is, these guys also become very pivotal in different facets of the industry. So you have, say, somebody like Mike Morita, for example, goes on to do Spark Girl for many years, and is now at Pelican Parts. One of the graphic designers, Tony Kwan, he is now Evasive Motorsports. There's a handful of other, Jason Deanhart is now Global Time Attack president. So I wind up making these core relationships with these guys. And so by the time the opportunity comes around to do Superstreet, now I first find out about Superstreet because I'm working at this company that's importing Dulux. And one of the editors came by to do a story on remember those crossbars?
Yes.
Hell yeah, I remember those crossbars.
Like,
the one that got away.
Yeah, it went over the back and
or the transmission.
Yeah, very unusual
Yes.
modification, but
it's chrome.
Yeah,
and it looks
it
awesome.
looked cool, right?
Yeah, Mark had one.
And for some reason or another, they come by to do the install on this piece, and I'm just talking to the editor, and we just get into the conversation. We're looking for somebody. If you know somebody, let us know. And I start, I think I can.
Did you raise your hand? You're like, hey.
Not right then and there, but he's just saying, hey, if you can help us out, spread the word. If you know anybody who's a photographer can write, let us know. We'd be grateful for any leads. And at the time, I'm not even thinking, I'm just thinking about, okay, cool. Hey, thanks for coming by to feature our products. But after he leaves, I started thinking about it. I said, well, I'm not a professional, but I've taken photos, so I don't know what level they need, but check. I'm not a great writer, but in school, that is probably my best topic of, I'm most proficient at writing.
Mm-hmm.
I think I can kind of fudge my way through it. Check. So I decide I'm going to apply. And then I have my coworker. He says, let me write you a cover letter. Because he says, let me see you write one. And then he reads it, goes, I'm going to write it for you. So he writes this cover letter for me, and I get an interview, and, I don't even think I'm going to get the job. I'm thinking, and I didn't hear from them for a while. I said, I definitely messed up. I'm probably not polished enough. I'm just this scrappy kid from, out in this. I'm not professional enough. That's all I can think about. And then, I bugged the editor, Matt Pearson. I bug him a couple times. Hey, do you have any decisions made? He says, oh, no, he says, but we're still thinking about you. And then finally, I get the call. He says, hey, we want to hire you. I'm like, because up until that time, I wasn't really into school. I didn't finish college. I was working a lot of odd jobs. My parents were basically telling me, you need to figure out your life, go into the military, do some kind of trade, go back to college, finish your degree. But I just wasn't into it. And then it wasn't like, I want to goof off and fix up my car. It wasn't how I set out to do that. But just because I had that job with that company that was importing those parts, and then just by virtue of making that connection with that editor, and getting that call, I said, this feels like a real job that I can do for a couple years, and then I'll go back to school. But it snowballed, and it went crazy. Like, it changed my life forever after that.
I love it. So tell me, what year did you start, and where did you start as, and then where did you end as?
I started working at Superstreet in 1998.
Wow.
In September of 1998. I was 21. They hired me on as associate editor. So that's essentially the lowest man on the totem pole. And they hired me because they felt I had a certain street knowledge that they were looking for, to give them a little bit more, I don't know, maybe credibility. And it wasn't like I just knew what I knew from, fixing up cars with my friends, and, maybe that was enough for them at the time. But as the internet comes in and I'm starting to find out more things. So that first year, that's where I start going onto forums like the Honda Hybrid forums, and I'm learning more about, this is where I find JDM for the first time.
Okay.
Those 3 letters. Okay. And when I first saw that, it wasn't like, JDM, like, what does this mean? Like Japanese domestic market? I don't know what this means. And I'm trying to read up and I'm thinking, who are these guys they're talking about? Again, I'm going to cycle back to FF Squad, Catman, Jason Catman Kaplan, and his buddies, kind of coined this term. And all I can think about is a bunch of white guys came up with this thing that seems to be so underground street. And this is my small city thinking of, this should be an Asian. I was like, what? I was like, this, but I only knew it as J-Spec, right? Mm-hmm. That's why when I say, oh, you're rich if you had the Japanese one-piece headlights or the Stanley clear. This is what me and my friends call. We didn't call it the JDM headlights. Yeah. It was the Stanley clear corner lights, the one-piece headlights for the Integra. We didn't call it that, but it's after we saw this, I was like, this is insane. Like, I need to know more about this, because I was seeing them. They modified their cars in a way.
Their cars look different.
So different. I said, this is not a Civic front end for the EF we didn't even call it that.
Right.
Didn't even call it that. I was like, EF? What is chassis code?
Yeah.
Like, what is this? Right. Yeah. And I don't think nobody was referring to their cars until the JDM thing came along. Yeah. And then everybody started calling their cars by chassis code.
Yeah.
But I just remember, I was like, this is so fascinating. I had to know more about it. And that's when I got like knee deep learning about that style of tuning. And, this is where, I got heat from them. You putting this in the magazine? What are you doing? Right.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to absorb. But eventually I make friends with, I'm become really good friends with a lot of these guys on the forum. We're still friends today, but kind of, getting along with them so that they can understand what I was doing. It's like, hey, I'm just trying to help, this side of our scene grow.
Yeah.
It was inevitable anyway, because TMR, another toy machine racing, this was another, I don't even know if it's free or not. It had to be free. It was free. A little mini magazine. Mm-hmm. They are actually technically the first ones to cover JDM. So it's not like I'm never going to say I'm the guy. I'm not the guy who starts it. I do not come up with, I don't coin the term, but I will say that I help elevate it to a certain level of mainstream that I will always be proud to say that I did,
Can we take a step back and talk about JDM, what JDM tuning meant? Because I think over the years it's kind of progressed, and it's a little different now versus what it initially was coined as from Catman and the FF Squad.
Right. So back then it was a term used to define a way to modify your car with the parts that were only available in the Japanese market. So if you're going to do your Civic in JDM style, that's to convert the front end,
right,
or do those one-piece headlights,
right,
the corner lights. However much of that's only available in Japan,
right,
means that you can convert that to JDM style. Doesn't mean because you swap the engine, that's JDM, or because you bought the part from Greddy or HKS, it's JDM. However, it starts to transition into that because it's an easier way of saying, the Japanese style.
Right.
Because as the tuning, I don't know, the tuning culture scene, as it starts progressing out of, drag racing and into, other things like drifting, how do we classify it?
Yeah.
It was easier to call it JDM versus, J-Spec is a very local.
Right.
It was a thing only I said to my friends.
I think there's a distinction there because I felt like the FF Squad cars, they would do a lot of OEM Japanese stuff.
Yeah.
So they would have an OEM bumper, OEM headlights that were not available here. And they would do tuning to their cars in terms of like lowering, putting wheels, engine mods. But that was a very distinct thing that they kind of started.
Yeah, correct.
And so for me, when you say JDM now, it's more about what J-Spec, the word we use J-Spec as is just like Japanese style.
Yes.
But I think for them, it was OEM Japanese things that you could not get here.
Yes.
Not necessarily aftermarket. Like they wouldn't have called like a Feels body kit on an EK JDM, I don't think.
Yeah, you're definitely clarifying it much further. It was certainly at the very beginning OEM, and it could have been any manufacturer. So say the JDM Sylvia front end is the OEM. Yeah. So yes, to clarify, when I learned it from them, it's very specifically factory. Yeah. OEM factory. Mm-hmm. Now as it progressed, it bleeds more into a Feels, body kit or whatnot, becomes JDM.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so you made your way through Superstreet as the associate editor. And then how long, was your journey there? Because I feel like I associate you and Superstreet. Like I would send in, I wanted it again on readers' rides, right? And I would send my photos in. And I sent my Polaroid of me and my 240. And I got in. And it was so cool. But it was like, it was like in the beginning when I had my car in the late 90s, it was about Superstreet. And then you were there. And then like, I feel like as long as I've ever known Superstreet, I've always seen your name in there. So how long were you with the magazine?
I was there from 98 until beginning of 2014.
Oh, man.
So chances are, in the very beginning, as associate editor, I had to do a lot of the department, letters. So it's quite possible I pick your car for readers' rides.
Wow.
Because that's like, they want me to learn, because I don't come from a traditional writing journalism background. Yeah. So they want me to, this is how you're going to get your feet wet. You're going to answer tech Q&A questions. You're going to you're going to pick the readers' rides. You're going to write all those little bits. And then we're going to put you on feature stories. And, all my stuff in the beginning, horrible. Got red marks everywhere. Uh-huh. It's horrible. Mm-hmm. But it's a lot of, you learn along the, it was, working there for such a long time. Yeah. I start literally from the bottom. Yeah. And then I become editor-in-chief. I go through I went from associate editor to technical editor for a very short, because they said, oh, you've been researching all this stuff on the forums. I'm writing about how to, that JDM, Honda, we're going to build a poor man's, all those sorts of things. And then I become a feature editor. And then in 2007, I finally become editor-in-chief. Nice. And that was a major crossroads in my life, because at that point in time, I almost considered leaving the magazine. I was getting a little bit frustrated professionally. I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do. I was turning 30. And so I said, do I really want to do this? Maybe not necessarily the rest. I was thinking, is it going to be the rest of my life? Mm-hmm. Or is this now the time where maybe I need to get a regular job, go back to school? So I actually did start going back to school for a little bit. I took a city exam to try and get one of those foot in the doorway, city jobs. Yep. And I got selected, and then they offered me the job, and I was like, what should I do? And I said, F it. I'm going to do the job. I'm going to become editor-in-chief. I said, I want to take it as far as I can go. I didn't want to look back. I didn't want to regret it.
So when you first got that job as editor-in-chief, what was the state of Superstreet in, and what was the imprint that you left on it as editor-in-chief?
The state that it was in, this was just before the recession of 2008. So it's kind of coming off the tail end of that crazy golden era where we had 300-page issues where you could literally write about anything you wanted and it would sell like hotcakes. So this, but I don't know this. This is just the economy is starting to take a downturn, and then it leads into probably what could have been the worst selling time, just as a whole in the world of trying to sell things like that.
Yep.
So I would say overall, I don't have the easiest time in terms of sales, but I also now find myself in the position where social media starts coming online. And I decide, with the guys that are working with me, we need to capitalize on this now. Not about, they were trying for the longest time, oh, you guys got to do more web stuff, because you were at Overboost, right?
You remember that?
Yeah. They're like, we got to do more of this, but they don't know how to do it properly. So in turn, we don't know how, we don't get a clear direction of should be going digital, should be doing this, should be making videos. But we don't, the company does not have the biggest foresight to go full steam, and we don't have the staff to do it. So then around 2010, this is where social media, 2011 is coming in. So we need to, Facebook, what is this? Let's take it and go. Then Instagram comes along. Hey, you guys need to start doing Instagram. Oh, what does this mean? You gonna post pictures? I'm telling you, if, photographer friends of mine, not in automotive, are doing this and saying this is the next thing, we need to do this. And by some miracle, just by testing a lot of, nobody knows how any of that's working back then, the algorithms. There probably is no magic formula back then, but I decide, let's post cool car pictures. I don't care if it's something we feature or not, but I think people are liking this. So we just start posting all sorts of cool pictures that we can find, random stuff, and it starts elevating the numbers. And after a while, people start saying, we start getting the photographers, hey, that's my picture. So then we start doing okay, we got to credit all these people. So now we credit everybody. I don't want to say we take the credit for saying, let's give those, how photographers, they get very hell-bent out of shape when you don't credit them. So, well, let's give them the credit, give them the love. And we build it and build it and build it. And then finally we get to this point, okay, we should stop featuring other, things that are not even in the magazine. Let's go back to core content. We start doing that. And then we finally break 1 million. Instagram and then Facebook. So we are the first, people might say, no, we did it. No, we are the first automotive title to break 1 million on both platforms. That even Ed Lowe, editor-in-chief of Motor Trend, has said, I wish, I followed that advice earlier so that we could either get ahead, because they were the flagship title of the company. Yeah. They should have been first.
Yeah.
We beat them to it. We didn't get any big press releases in the news. We should have.
You drove that ship.
Yeah, I drove. We had our own party. We counted down. I remember we have pictures of it too. When we hit we were like, we're running to the office. We were like, what the hell's going on?
Yeah.
We made, t-shirts and all this stuff to celebrate. And, I don't even think the company really cared. But did you sell more magazines? Well, no. We got 1 million followers.
Yeah.
They're like, well, what do we do with them? Hello. Yeah. So that's probably my crowning achievement, before leaving in 2014.
Okay.
And we hit 1 million in 2013, so it wasn't too long.
Yeah.
After that I leave.
I love that. Tell me your 2 most iconic articles that you commandeered.
2 most iconic articles that, you know what? I don't know if I can pinpoint 2 exactly, but I can definitely remember the worst moments where it's like, oh, that should have done way better than it did. Why did it totally bomb? So, one will of course be the drifting issue.
Yes.
Right. That is for sure. If I'm just going to pick one off the top of my head, And, you know, this is just for recent memory. It's definitely a drifting one. I was so proud of it.
Yeah.
But then when you see, I just wanted to hide.
Yeah.
Even though, you know, I have to go back and look at it and say, I bet we could pick it apart now and say, oh, yeah, we totally shouldn't have done that. Or, you know, how would I do it differently? But, I mean, I was really proud of what we did. The only other one I can really think of is the HKS Time Attack. It was a car that Taniguchi drove. I can't remember which car it is.
Was it
Altez?
There was a carbon Evo and a carbon Altezza, right?
Maybe it's the Evo.
Okay.
But, you know, had the crazy graphics.
Mm-hmm.
And I just remember thinking, this is the best cover shot. It's going to do awesome. It was the worst selling issue.
Really?
You know, it's crazy. Magazines, they're always trying to figure out what will make a magazine sell. And the hard part is you will never figure out truly what it is. Like, you could try and pick it apart all day. But the problem is you are putting a magazine together 3 months in advance.
Oh.
So the problem is by the time that comes out, like, the metrics are really hard to figure out because is it the cover? Was it the content inside? You have no idea. And it's too late by the time you can even address it. So, like, you can't lose sleep over it.
Yeah.
But you will, the best selling issues wind up being the ones where I was certain, like, this is not a great cover car. I just needed something, even though they're all great cover cars, but not sure. Let's just do it. And boom. I'm like, what the hell is going on?
Yeah. Sounds like podcasting.
It's something, it was so hard to predict.
Yeah.
But
did you put certain color cars on the cover?
Yeah, there's always there's some certain rules.
What are the rules? You
can never put it's the cardinal sin is try to never put white or black cars just because they're so monochrome. They just don't pop.
To catch your eye.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. The best colors are red, obviously. Just anything with color.
Yeah.
But the darker it is, usually is very hard to get it to pop. You really want to be able to, you know, as we're putting a magazine together, we'll tape it up on the wall to stand back from it and say, can I see this out of a
stack of other magazines? Yeah.
How do I get that? And then it's the combination of image with the headlines. Mm-hmm. It's a crazy science that is so hard to master.
Nice. Okay, so 2014 you left.
Mm-hmm.
What happened?
Well, the company was getting ready to do some downsizing, like in a big way. You know, it's pretty, a lot of people probably don't know like what really went down.
Yeah, I want to know.
Only because.
Do you know what really went down?
Oh, I definitely know it went down.
All right.
I mean, essentially what happens is I get into some trouble, you know, with my with my boss at the time.
Who's your boss?
Not going to go into that because they're not worth mentioning. No, I'm not saying.
Dang.
Meaning they're very insignificant.
Okay.
Like they're not even people that you would know. It's not even a person you would know their name. But I get written up for being insubordinate. You know, I'm just trying to do my job. Mm-hmm. You know, I was even so willing, you know, I was denied being able to go to Japan to do my annual Tokyo All-Azwan coverage. You know, this is without me even realizing there's probably a downsizing coming, but had I had the foresight, you know, I probably would have played it a little bit cooler. Mm-hmm. You know, but I decide, you know what? He's like, we don't have budget. I said, look, I'll pay for it out of my own pocket. You know, we need this content. We need to put this issue together. We cannot go. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, who's going to cover it?
Yeah.
He says, oh, let's just send one of your, I said, that doesn't work because I'm the one that has to be there to talk to, you know, your contacts. They don't understand there's the Japanese way of doing business, which, you know, the boss needs to be there to meet the boss, not the, not the, you know, little guys. Yeah. Even though they can technically, but it's better to have, you know, especially if I built the relationships with all those companies that we had lined up, you know, and he's like, no, it can't go. I'm like, I'll just pay for it. You know, it's not a big deal. $1,000. It's not a big deal at the end of the day if we can get great content. Mm-hmm. And then they just decide, you know, they call me in the office one day, we're gonna let you go. I'm like, for what? Yeah. like being insubordinate. You're defying the rules that we set down.
Because you wanted to go to Tokyo Auto Salon?
Yeah, because I wanted
you're
to.
gonna pay
Because
out
I
of
wanted to go. He was saying, "No, we told you not to go, but you want to go anyway."
Yeah.
Right. And I'm thinking, this is ridiculous. Like,
Yeah.
But of course, they start to make sense later on, because then this wave comes in and they start clearing house.
They were looking for a reason to get rid of you.
Yeah, and it was kind of the perfect storm for them. They said, "Oh, because now you created your own
downfall."
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And it sucked, because I'm like, here I am. I just built up all this for you guys. I just got you into the stratosphere of 2 million, social media follow, blah, blah, blah. And this is how you're going to, but that's where you also learn the harsh reality of no loyalties, right? Business is business.
Business is
Yep,
business.
yep.
It's not personal.
Yeah, it's not personal, but at the time I took it really personal because I've been there for 15 years of my life.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden it's gone. What
Yeah.
do I do now? I found myself in a state of, depressed for a while. I couldn't really talk to anybody about it because it was one of those things like, do I talk about it? I didn't want to go on Facebook and say, "Hey, does anybody have a job lined up for me?" I didn't want to do any of that, and I had some friends who were like, "Yeah, you don't need to air. Nobody needs to know this stuff. Just put your head down, hustle, get in where you can, and just keep working where you can." And so that's what I did. I just lay low for a little bit, took up a couple, great jobs, just to kind of keep me distracted, so to speak, mentally, but at the same time, I also had to think about, well, I got to pay for my mortgage. So I can't really just chill. It's not like I have family money waiting for me so that I can just kick back and not do it. Like I had to go back to work. So I went back to work. I don't want to call them odd jobs, but it's just, I was doing jobs. You
were finding your way.
Well, I think of myself kind of it was almost being like institutionalized in a sense. Like when someone's in, prison system for a long time, you get very used to a way of doing something.
Okay, yeah.
And so this was the first time in my life where I didn't have that steady, comfortable, work life that I was used to. And so now I had to find, new things to, start working towards, try and figure out ways to reinvent myself. I started working, I did other things, other content things, but I try to think, am I just grasping back for that super street?
Yeah.
Am I just holding on too tight? I didn't want to be the guy that's, that's a great legacy to have and be known for. But at the same time, I was like, I didn't want to just be known as the super street guy.
Okay.
And it took a few years to mentally get over that hurdle.
Yeah.
Because it's really tough to like break away from that.
For sure.
Yeah, you had so much time there. Because anytime you're away, how many years was that? That was...
I got one of those 15-year, hey, you made it. And boom. God. I was like, thanks.
Yeah. That's like...
Thanks for the memories.
Most of your professional life was there, right?
Well, all my professional
life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Half my adult life.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Well, you came out the other end and you're doing great now. Yeah. And Superstreet, after that, tell us what happened with them as a brand or...
So, I had, the staff guys that I had working with me, they did a great job, taking over where I left off. Magazine, social got bigger. But of course, eventually it hits this point where now social media is killing the magazines.
Yeah.
And it did. And it wiped out pretty much wiped out all the import titles at the company. So Superstreet was the last one standing for, a few years, but, they took out Import Tuner, Turbo, it's very unfortunate. You don't want to see, number one, you don't want to see good titles go away.
Yeah.
Because, these are things that we really looked forward to seeing. And, of course, we don't want to see really talented people, lose their livelihoods. But again, it's a business. So obviously, the company decided they did what they had to do. That was best. But I mean, on the flip side, I mean, look at where auto content is now. I mean, you could literally, like you guys, you're doing it yourselves. Now you don't need to wait for, or you don't need to have it helps when you have a company that backs you financially, but truthfully, now there's no saying, I can't just, I have my own, I don't need to wait for anybody. I could just, the hard part is just finding the time. Yes, if people say, would you want to do that? Yeah, would love to, but they don't understand how hard it is to dedicate the time, resources, and then, life changes, you get older, you have different responsibilities. So it's not just, I'm not the same person I was when I left Superstreet now. So it's very hard to say, what can I do content-wise?
Yeah.
Would you say that magazines would give you something that you don't get in today's world through social media and stuff?
They do. But it really depends on the type of person that will pick up the magazine. Some people want to read longer form stories, but everybody's so used to quick.
Yeah.
The problem is today is you can cycle, how many times you look at your phone.
Right.
So anybody that put in that hard work, even lately, if you take notice of, look at how many like LA Times, a lot of just last month, a lot of, big public wiped out 10-50% of the staff, right? And you look at what's killing it. Well, it's probably combination AI. Yeah, the attention span. People just, it's a shame for people who, really talented journalists or content creators that put so much time and effort into creating that really wonderful piece of content, only for it to just, or somebody, they don't even read it.
Or they just read the headlines and that's it.
They don't even read the headline. I mean, you'd be surprised how, I put a simple thing on social media and somebody will say, oh, so I'm like, I literally just said it in the, I'm not trying to dig on you, but it's literally
click read more
right there. No, not even read more. It's just, I state, this is the fact you need to know about what I'm putting here. And I still get where is this?
Yeah.
Like, dude.
So you mentioned that you went to Tokyo Auto Salon every year while you were at Superstreet. Do you have any cool stories during your travels? Anything for our drifting fans, the people that are listening that are looking for, like drifting related content?
Well, drifting related cool stories in Japan. So there was one year that we went, Nitto Tire had this media event after the show. Dai Yoshihara was one of their sponsored drivers at the time. So they brought us out. I can't remember what track it was, but brings a busload of journalists to come see him do some drifting exhibitions. I can't remember. There's a ride along, but I distinctly remember I was so hungover that day that I didn't care about anything. I didn't want to look at a car. I didn't want to sit in the car. I could barely sleep in the car. I was dead. I just distinctly remember at the very end when it was all said and done, everybody's, oh, bye, Ron. And then Dai starts drifting around the bus, and then he takes off, and then we take off, and I just pass out in the car again. There's a lot of crazy stories in Japan to begin with, but it's very much of it's like whatever happens in Osaka stays.
I see.
Dang.
Just being there just as a car enthusiast, and then to have the special privilege as a magazine staff, you can walk into Mugen's factory. Like nobody else can do this.
Okay.
Right? It's more of those moments where I cannot believe I'm in Taniguchi's house. We did.
You went to his house?
I did.
Where were you at his house?
So 1 year, the year that the FRS came out, we did this program with Scion. Maybe it was a couple years after, but they said, hey, we're doing this program that they sold, they call it Garage FRS. So like, hey, each magazine's going to get to do their own little mini content, that because we sold the program. So Modified did one thing, Import Tuner did one thing, but ours was we're going to do 86 hours in Japan was the theme. So I flew over with Brandon Leung from Bowls. He was my video guy. He's still my video guy. So we go over there and we cover Taniguchi is debuting the HKS 86 as a D1 drift car at it's one of the F1 circuits. Anyway,
Suzuka?
Yes, Suzuka. Thank you. Anyway, you know, so we were just, you know, tailing him, do some interviews. You know, there just happens to be like 8.6 owners. It's like the largest gathering of 8.6 owners, you know, driving around the track, blah, blah, blah. And then afterwards, you know, okay, let's do some, while we have him, let's go do some. So he says, yeah, come to my house. So we start, I'm sitting in his house.
Wow.
It's every bit as cool and like, you know, very Taniguchi as you would expect. Like, it's very clean. You know, he's got his, you know, very nicely displayed things. It feels like this is what, you know, a driver of his house. Yeah. Very nice house in Yokohama.
Is it like fancy, like rich guy house?
Oh, I'm sure by
their standards.
By their standards, yeah. It's probably
really nice.
You know, very nice. And he was also right across from Takahiro Ueno.
Yeah.
So those guys are like,
they're neighbors.
Like they could literally. I remember we have a picture of these guys. Like, I think they can shoot like some kind of dart gun or something. Like, they could hit each other. That's this out. Like, it's not far away, but they can literally like.
Yeah.
They're shot like, hey, you know, they can literally. Yeah. And then it's just like I said, it's being able to do all those photo shoots in places, you know, with this iconic car. Like, nobody else is doing this.
Yeah.
You know, and that was the reason why when I took over, I said, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to make this the premier JDM magazine. Because Turbo's got its own thing. They want to educate on technical, how to build it, how to do it right. We're not that. I'm not going to pretend to know how to do any of that. So they can have that. Sport compact car, how can I, you know, it's more like the motor trend you know, like, this car drives like this. You know, it's a little more slightly elevated than Turbo, right? You want to read better, like, writers that have, these are real journalists writing about cars. But us, I'll stay being those scrappy kids. Yeah. That care more about style, you know, speed. Like, we just want it to be cool. That's it. Like, I'm just literally carrying, it's like an extension of my own personality that I'm going to put into this magazine. And I'm just going to stay true to this. That's why I did it that way.
I love it. And know that in your notes that you drove with Ken Block.
Yeah. So the cool thing about working at Superstreet or just any car magazines, you get invited on press trips. It could be any number of things. So a lot of times it's, hey, come, you know, Honda, come drive the new Civic. You know, we're going to fly you out to this town, you know, drive around, you know, sometimes and some of the places, they would be really exotic. You know, like I drove the new BRZ in the countryside, or like southern France, right? So these are like epic trips. But then sometimes a company like Subaru, you know, who does, you know, a lot of different motorsport activities, you know, at the time, you know, like they would have me come out and like watch Colin McRae, you know, doing something. I'm like, dude, I'm sitting across from Colin. He's having his birthday. Like, I'm sitting there, they're celebrating a birthday cake with him. I'm just sitting there. Okay, this is cool. But then the one time with Ken Block he's getting ready to do promo for Gymkhana 2. So like Gymkhana has already come out, and it's already like, oh, this is crazy stuff, right? So now they're like, hey, we want to invite you to come down to San Pedro. We're going to put you in a car with Ken Block, and he's going to run you around the whole kind of circuit that they made. Yeah. Like, okay. Like, I can't turn that down. And this is just when we're kind of experimenting with, you know, making YouTube videos. So I just have this little point and shoot. There's no GoPro. I just have this point and shoot camera that can film, that can do videos. Like, I'm just going to hold it and just hope for the best. But, you know, he starts and it's just, this video is on, I have it online. I mean, I can give you the footage too, but it's just like, oh, and it's shaky and it doesn't look great at all. There's no stabilization. You know, I try to turn it on him and he's just laser focused. Yeah. You know, and it winds up like, I don't say anything. Like in my head, I'm thinking, I can't believe but he's going so fast and he's like doing donuts around whatever. I can see the people, the film crews filming everything. It's like I'm literally in.
You're in Gymkhana.
I'm in Gymkhana. Like this is, and he's just
laser focused.
Like it's nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then he's like, "Hey, you like that?" I'm like, "Yeah, that's badass, man. Thank you." I get out. I'm like, "Okay, thanks for coming. See you later." Yeah, that was probably that's a huge highlight. Considering what happened.
His passing.
Yeah.
Did you get a sense of his personality with that short time that you had with him?
I just remember, passionate. I think that's one thing you always see. Like when you see something Ken Block, like very passionate, laser focused. That's the kind of thing I think that made him so unique and successful in that realm. Is you cannot do that unless you are like that.
Yeah,
it's impossible. That's probably why he can never be replaced in that regard.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. You have such good stories, John. I like it. You're a good storyteller.
Oh, thank you.
What are you? A writer?
Dabble.
Can you tell us about your current EF?
So the current car I have now is not the same car that I had, my first car, but back in 2006, 2007, somewhere around there, my friend Jerry Si, who started Pacific Rim Clothing, had this car
and helped to start Dai Yoshihara's drifting career.
Who helped to start Dai Yoshihara's drifting career, correct. Had this Civic that he was going to, I guess, I don't know how far of a resto mod, but he just wanted to kind of fix it up a little bit and just drive it around. And then he decided he didn't want it. And I don't remember which car. I may not have even had any project car at the time. But I said, "Ooh, it would be nice to build one of these again because it's still one of my favorite Honda chassis of all time." So it was a great price, needed a little bit of work, but he gave me a ton of parts that interior bits to kind of touch it up. But I said, well, I'm at the magazine. I'm going to turn this into a project car. Let's go 1000%. So it was white, changed it to blue, swapped the B16 into it. I luckily and crazy at that time, I thought all the JDM parts were expensive then.
Oh my gosh.
And not so readily available, but I said, well, I'm just going to start collecting it. So I got front end, tail lights, as much as I could without doing the bronze glass or right-hand drive or power window conversion. So I didn't want to do all that. And the goal was to make it a combination of my dream high school car, like SGV style, but mixed with JDM style. So I wanted that JDM look, but I also wanted that SGV classic dumped SSR super fins. Just, how I probably would have done it if I had the money in high school.
Yeah.
So it's mostly there. I feel like every so often, I don't drive very much, and every so often I find some parts to put onto it, but I just bought something recently. I bought a Fujitsubo header for it.
Nice.
Because the yen conversion is so incredible that I could not pass up.
Yeah.
And besides, the header on my car, even though I love the DC Sports header, funny enough, is the only thing that's not JDM. So I thought, well, I have to complete the true theme of the car. Not that I don't want the header, but I just thought it made more sense. It needs to be fully, if it's going to be JDM, I cannot have the random US part on it.
Right.
So that's the latest part that I have.
Very cool.
Yeah.
And you had the honor of having your car in the Peterson Museum.
I did. So that happened because Jim Lau, Formula D co-president, he was helping the Peterson Museum curate a selection of cars for their first, I guess, Japanese. It's not even a JDM thing, but just more of a Japanese, exhibit. Kind of mixing, you would have some different styles. So, some super JDM, there's a Ken Mary that was in there. Get some. They just kind of represent different areas of tuning, the Japanese tuning culture. And then he recommended mine to represent Southern California's, old school, like classic style, which I was really honored. I was like, well, my car is not that clean. It truly isn't. And people like really got up to it and they compared it with other cars that were in, like, those guys are far more deserving. Like mine is just, I don't know. Maybe they just picked it because Jim said pick this car, or because it represents this very regional style.
Yeah.
But yeah, I had it in there for maybe 8 months or something.
Wow, that's a long time.
Yeah, it was cool. That's probably one of the moments where I finally had my parents say, "Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Great job.
They approve now."
We finally said, "I'm proud of you." I was like, what? You mean it took me like not going to college, but I could put a car in the museum, and now you finally guys, give me props. I'm like, yes.
They're like, "Did you get paid?" Is that what they said?
No, I think when I tell people, "Hey, it's car storage, like climate control, secure. I can get you guys in the Peterson Museum anytime. We can go look at it." They're like, "Oh, that's cool."
That is really cool.
Yeah.
We saw your car there.
Thank you.
So you mentioned SGV style of tuning, right? And your car represented SoCal, SGV. During your travels at Superstreet, around the country to Japan, did that style become more apparent to you as something that is actually unique to SoCal?
I think it's definitely very specific to SoCal, because in that early, I don't know, maybe even as late as late 80s, I think Daz is much older than, it's a little bit older than us. Because I can remember going, when Daz was not a big shop on that corner of St. It was down at a much smaller, where the hair salon is now. They were in this little space. James Chen Axis was at Daz. I went to that first Daz with my dad, who was looking at wheels for his 240. That 1989 240. I don't know anything about, but my dad, what do you think about this one?
Yeah,
it looks okay, but I think because it's all those Japanese, that's too expensive.
Yeah,
or look at whatever the American alternate that you would see flipping in a motor chin, like that tire rack ad, or whatever. Like, nah, we'll settle on this one.
Right.
Not these Japanese. But it was too. My dad didn't. It was too over his head, and it was just too expensive. But yeah, the SGV style is very unique, because I think we're the only ones that really wanted those early SSR racing heart type wheels.
Yeah.
It is. I can't say the rest of the country didn't get it, but I know it comes here.
It started here. Everything
starts here. And a lot of people say, no, we are the originators. No, but truly, in my opinion, the heart of, Japanese, where it begins is Southern California. And it begins is that, like I said, is that wink mirror. If you have to talk about what are 5 essential items that a 1990s car in Southern California has, some type of SSR racing heart wheel.
Yeah.
Wink mirror, Fuba antenna, air freshener, and maybe HKS exhaust.
Right.
Or that, the ridiculous air filter that's too gigantic for your car. But
right.
You did anyway.
And it all came through promotion.
Promo. You could talk, CarMate.
Yeah.
Depends where you are regionally.
Yeah.
Every city's got its own, little speech,
little hub.
Part shop.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
But then, so, that's the earlier style, right? But then also in SoCal, we saw it evolve into like the vinyl seats, the vinyl interior, and
that's when Import Showoff, comes online.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then now we're talking about my car club. Like by that point, there's like the fake fail side body kit trend. Where it's like, you never made it for an Accord, but
right.
Because, these shops like VIS,
they
were selling these. That's how we got known, because we made that style.
I don't think you mentioned your team name yet.
Oh, so sorry, guys. Need to shout out my car club Team Macross. I think I did.
Oh, yeah. No, you did. Yeah.
Anyway, so we started off super small. We were just guys from probably about 2 or 3 different high schools, all neighbors. So Alhambra High School, Mark Keppel, South Pasadena, maybe a couple guys in Temple City, whatnot, but all in this area. None of us have anything really crazy in the beginning, but then, one guy, he's able to do a Type R conversion. Not the legitimate OEM metal front end, but he gets the fiberglass front end, but still, it's a Type R. He paints it yellow.
Mm-hmm.
He has it totally done up by Dr. Charles Madrid at Pit Crew. They make it a 10-second car. So, like, it's not like, oh my God, we did anything revolutionary or crazy, because we're still scrubs compared to, the top guys.
Yeah.
But at least locally for us, they're like, oh, dude, these Macross guys are going fast. You see that yellow Integra?
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, okay, we got our flagship car now. The rest of us, we're just hanging out and cruising. Then when some of the other guys, like, okay, now that we are starting to, max out our credit cards and take our student loans, let's fix up our cars. So all the guys started turbocharging their cars, putting those body kits on, paint the cars. Now let's go enter Import Showoff. And then we win Team Showoff once.
Mm-hmm.
Once. We didn't do anything else after that. And then that puts us on the map for Southern California. Now we are recognized amongst, Tecna Speed and, all these other, we're definitely not in the realm of coastal. We never got to the top.
Right.
But, at least for SGV, like, yeah, we made a little name for ourselves.
Right.
It was fun.
Yeah. So what led us into that conversation was the style, like how style was changing, and, like the headlight swaps, the taillight swaps, the fake Velside body kits.
Yeah. I mean, but you would start to see that definitely in other areas of the country as I started traveling. Right.
Yes.
So when they finally send me on these trips, like, hey, we're going to send you to, Pennsylvania,
Mm-hmm.
like Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. There's this big custom whatever show. Like, this is going to be your first travel trip outside of California. I get there. I'm by myself. I am trying to figure out how to get to this event, which is in the middle of nowhere. There's no GPS. There's no MapQuest. I got to look at a map, a physical map, or a Thomas Brothers guide map, figure out how do I get lost a couple times, but I wind up getting there. I go there and it's totally different scene. But they take what they see in California, they adopt it their way, and then, you start going around.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. The more you go around the country, and this is what, started to expand my horizons, not just tuning, but just, relating to people, this is what really, wakes me up a lot is, it's different everywhere.
Yeah.
You start to appreciate car culture in many different ways.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's fascinating. Like, you may not like it because you're so used to your style or what you have around here, but I give props to those guys because they're super friendly. Like, you meet a whole new group of people and make friends. That was the cool thing about working in magazines. Now I've got people in other cities. The style is different. But the heart and soul is the same.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Amen to that.
Very cool.
I love it. Oh, well, we are almost out of time, but I want to still talk about what you do today to kind of round out our interview. And I talked about you being involved with drifting before, in the magazine, and how we all are still involved today. Right. So, share with us what you're doing today.
Right. So even after leaving Superstreet, I have done my best to, try and stay, as closely connected as I can to, the car scene. It's like I love it so much. I never want to be away from it. So I will still go to events on my own, car meets, whatever. But professionally, now I'm at the ID agency. So we are a smaller, I guess, boutique PR agency.
Mm-hmm.
And one of our clients is Formula D. So I assist Formula D with their on-site media relations, and I help organize photographers that, when they want to come shoot an event, I help take care of that.
The young John Wongs. John Wongs. John
I said
Wrongs.
John Dongs.
John Wrongs.
John Wrongs, yeah. So it's exciting to, when we talk about
loving drifting in different ways. This is a new, being really thrust back into it.
Mm-hmm.
Like before I started doing it, I actually, wasn't following professional US drifting for probably since I left. There's no reason for me to really follow it. So when I come back, I'm like, I don't know who any of these drivers. I'm like, who's James Dean? Who is Matt Field? Like, I don't know any. I'm like, and I started thinking to myself, where are these guys even coming from? Like, I don't recall their names. And then, I go back and I see Andy Haley has been drifting since. I'm like, I don't remember this guy. Right? I'm like, who the hell is? So it's kind of mind blowing and incredible to see how far this new wave of drive, because I'm so used to the the Vong Gittins and like the old the Daiush. I'm used to those guys.
Yeah.
But now it's cool if you always thought for a long time, oh, I wish there was a new crop of drivers to overtake these guys. But now I feel like it's here.
Mm-hmm.
And now that I have to be thrust into the situation where I have to, I don't necessarily have to be on top of where anybody's placing, but because I'm there, I'm now much more aware of, the current state. Maybe not necessarily the drama that Robbie Nishida has to deal with.
Right.
That's a whole, like, I don't touch that. Like,
Yeah.
I can't even go in the judge's tower. That's how strict it is. But, now it's cool to, like, I can watch from the sidelines again, understand what the current state is and just continue to watch it progress professionally.
Yeah. That's dope.
That's good.
You get to see all the good stuff. You're always around all the good things. Oh, I love it.
So we're nearing the end. Is there anyone you'd like to thank or shout out?
There are a lot of people I need to thank for helping me become who I've been able to become because of what I've done in the car industry. Of course, it's my friends in Team Macross 7. If we did not start the journey of being curious about how to make our cars lower, faster, better looking, that would not have encouraged me to want to explore areas of creativity that I didn't know existed within me. I need to also thank people that believed in skill sets that took a long time to develop, and in trusting me, in knowing that there was something within me to bring to the table to help elevate what we were, the mission statement. I have always looked at myself as I'm never a great photographer. I'm not the best photographer. I'm okay. I'm not the best writer, but I try to write as best as I can. I think what personally I feel very proud of is I'm a connector of sorts. I like to find the right people. I like to find the right talent to help bring my vision to life. Like I help different people get jobs at different magazines or in different places of the industry. I believe more in that. I believe more in what can I find that's cool, that people will also find cool. Like that's more of where I feel like I've always been. It's not about me, making the perfect picture, or writing that story that everybody's, because nobody does.
Right.
Yeah, that's ultimately what I'm proud of, is that I'm glad those people took a chance on me. I'm very thankful to my wife, Loanne, for allowing me to, sneak off and do these car things with my friends.
Yeah.
She knows it's very important to me. It's also our kind of, that's our time to, reset and, do what you need to do and then come back and focus on family stuff. And I mean, every staff that I work with, they're all like family to me. And like I said, everybody I've met along the way, including you two, like you are all characters that played a part in very specific moments of those points of import car culture that still contributes to the greater, we are the sum of the parts or whatever.
Mhm.
Like you are very critical pieces of that, which is part of my life to build and produce that.
Yeah.
There's so many. I mean, around the world.
Yeah.
I couldn't name everybody right now.
Yeah.
I'd have to go through every magazine that I worked on and go through my phone and say, yep, that person, that person,
Right.
that person, that person. It's literally
All part of your journey.
thank you, everybody.
Mm-hmm. It's good.
Oh, that's so sweet. And I just remembered John was at our wedding. You photographed our wedding.
Yeah.
I did.
You found your way into the.
I snuck in.
You were invited as a guest, and you somehow became a photographer.
No, he connected us with our photographer.
That's right.
Talking about connections.
Yeah,
I
Terrence
remember that.
Patrick.
Mm-hmm.
Shout out
really
Terrence.
good friend of mine. Needed an assistant. So I said, oh, why not? It's actually shooting weddings is much harder than any car event. It's harder than shooting drifting. You can kind of expect what's coming.
Mm-hmm.
But the wedding, he was like, okay, I'm going to be back there. I'm going to get the kiss. But you got to be right here getting this angle. So make sure you got to be on time.
Yeah.
We're the insurance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was like, I don't remember how my pictures came out. I just remember, okay, I got to shadow him, or I got to do this, I got to do that. But I just knew at the very end, I was like, I need to get a picture of them because, aside from whatever monetary whatnot gift, I got to put them in the magazine. So
You knew that you were going to do that.
yeah,
We had no idea.
Yeah.
That was so sweet.
That was very nice.
because it's always like the nice send off to any issues to have that one great. I think we call it happy ending,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and it was the happiest ending.
Yeah.
Because was the slogan "Drifting changed our lives" or something to that effect?
I don't know. It's plaqued. So I'll put it right here.
There was a slogan, one of you two or both of you two were using, and I said, "Yeah, drifting changed their life."
Yeah.
Like it could not have worked out any better.
Yeah. That was really nice. To have the whole back cover, I thought that was really, really
Yeah,
cool.
that was dope. And you nailed the shots for
Yes.
sure. Our first kiss. You got our first kiss. And yeah, we had the best. Yeah, our cars were at our cars were at our wedding, so it was fitting that John was there. So
A lot of people still walk up to me to this day and they talk about that.
Oh,
yeah, they do.
glad they saw it.
Yeah. And people saw that who didn't realize that was me or Nadine.
Oh.
But it touched them in some way that years later when I talked to them about it, they're like, "Oh, that was you." So,
Very cool.
yeah, it's very cool.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for that. So we're going to close this out. I wanted to say thank you for your time, first of all. Second, just taking us down memory lane. I think this is not everyone here in the studio right now have shared similar experiences to you when it comes to early car culture and how it's changed our lives and how it's shaped our lives. So appreciate you sharing that. Also, thank you for your time at Superstreet, because I talk to people who have been introduced to cars through your magazine, who have been inspired to get involved into cars because of your magazine. And just like you said, they are now a small piece of the picture that creates this humongous thing that we love called drifting or import car culture, or whatever you want to call it. And there are so many people that are here today being involved because of what you've done. So thank you for that. And thank you for being one of the coolest OGs. You're so humble. You're accessible. Like people who are listening to this would never realize the effect that you've had on the country in terms of what you've done through the magazine and the features and things like the JDM trend, or all the things. And I know we didn't get to talk about it a whole lot in this episode, but Superstreet was there for all of the major drifting things that happened in SoCal and the US.
That's true.
You guys were there like you said, you guys were there at the first option Ikaten in 96. You were there at Drift Showoff,
First D1 GP,
the D1s, the Formula Ds, back when it was, and you guys were there before a lot of the other magazines. And I remember you guys were at a Button and Willow event, it was just a grassroots event, but you guys were there covering Hiroshi and Shinji coming from Japan.
That's right, yeah.
You guys were here for a lot of major things. And so thank you for your involvement in that. Thank you to the magazine for helping to spread drifting culture so early on.
No, you guys are welcome.
Yeah.
I'm like super, like I say, I find myself in awe, and I'm extremely fortunate, and I'm so happy, when I hear that people say, they when I hear things like this.
Yeah.
So I'm very proud to have played my part.
Yeah.
So thank you guys for having me again.
Yep. Thank you.
Thank you, John.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Sileightymania podcast Season 2, brought to you by Falcon Tires, produced by Benson Sue and Nadine Sue, audio and video engineering by Mark Mondoy, graphic design and motion graphics by Steve Nakamura. Got a question or comment for us? Call or text us on our hotline at 323-607-6075, and maybe you can be featured on a future episode. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to our podcast on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you download your podcasts.